The Zcam menu is a video-based menu, which takes some getting used to, but once you know all the settings, it's easy to use. Let's take a look. Hey, welcome to Thnx Studio. My name is Damus, aka Pro-X, and this is your place to be for videography. So don't forget to subscribe and put on the notification bell so you stay up to date with my latest videos. First of all, I'm not sponsored by Zcam, so everything you see right here is all mine, and I'm gonna give you my honest opinion by what I think about the Zcam menu. And if you don't like to watch the whole video in one time, you can just skip to the chapters. I'll put them down in the description, put a timestamp on it so you can just click on it and go directly to the point you need to be. And I appreciate it if you watch the whole video, give me some YouTube credits of course, or just scroll through the options and you can just click on the timestamp and go directly to the point you need to be. Now, before I bought my Zcam, I already watched some videos about the menu of Zcam, and it looked nice. And as soon as I had my own Zcam, I opened up the menu, and immediately, coming from a Sony background, immediately felt like, yeah, this is the right menu for me. It's easy, it's simple, it got the right tools, it got everything you need for videography, and not like Sony where you need to scroll through 100 options to find the right settings or the right option to choose from. It's an easy to use menu, takes some getting used to, but once you know all the settings, you can just scroll through the menu real quick and know exactly what you need. It's going to be a long video, so again, the timestamps are in the description if you just want to skip to the different options, the different chapters. And enough talking, let's dive into it. This is the top view of the Zcam E2-M4. As you can see, here's your record button, and this is the screen which says how many minutes you got and your settings, etc. Of course, you need a bigger monitor, external monitor, to see exactly what you're doing, because this one, it has a small monitor, but it's too small to see anything on it. You can get there by pressing the function and the OK button. So function OK, you get the little screen, function OK, then you're back into this setting. So let's start off with the menu button. Press that one, and it starts off where you finish last. And as you can see, with the up and down arrow, you can scroll through the menus easily. And if you need to go back to system from record, it's also possible. So just scroll through. So let's start off with the record option. First of all, it's the resolution, which makes you set your right resolution, CK4 low noise, 4K low noise. This is my favorite setting, C4K, 4K, etc. Not gonna go too deep into the options because yeah, you just have to find out for yourself what's the right option for you. So these are the settings, and I like to use C4K. That's yeah, like the cinema 4K, 4096 by 2160. So that's biggest option, and it also got some slow motion option, but I'll do a different video on that. So that's for the resolution. So after that, you can choose your frames per second, and it's called the project FPS. And what I found out is that this is the frames per second you set on your timeline in your editing program. So I use Premiere, and I'm in Europe, so I use 25 frames per second. So you can just change that up to however you want, because coming from a Sony, yeah, you just set the frames per second and then you can double it, and that's your slow motion. But on this camera, it works, you can put the frames per second for the project, so that's your project you're gonna edit in, and with the variable frames, you can change the slow motion. So if you leave it to off, then yeah, it's just the 25 frames per second, but you can choose different options, slow motion options, and depends on what settings you in. That depends on how you can set your slow motion, but I'll do a different video on that, because slow motion is a different way of going into the menu, and it takes a lot of time to explain, but for now we're just walking through the menu. So you can see here you can put your variable frame rate, so that's your slow motion. So remember, the project FPS, that's your the project in your edit program, and the variable frame rates, that's the slow motion you want to use. And in some settings it goes up to 150, but for this one it's 120. So if you look at it, that's C4K, Cinema 4K at 25 frames timeline, and with 120, where was it? With yeah, so that's Cinema 4K with 25 frames timeline and a variable frame rate of 120. And of course, because I'm in Europe, I don't go for 120, but I go for 100. So this is my setting. So it got Cinema 4K, 25 frames per second on the timeline, and my slow motion is 100 frames per second. Now next up is you can choose between MP4 and MOV. Maybe for the Apple users it's a common thing, because the MOV is used by QuickTime, and it was a format that's not really used in Windows. Windows use .mp4, and yeah, the difference between those two, you can Google it. I looked it up once and I decided that yeah, MP4 is my thing. But then I found out that if you leave it on MP4, you limit yourself to some high frame rates and some different options, but I'll come back to that later. So here's your option for MP4 or MOV, the split duration. And what that does is if you're recording a long, say like an interview or a talking head, and you don't want one large file, you can split it up into different minutes. Say after 5 minutes it cuts, after 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever suits best for you, so you don't have large files but you have multiple files you can work with. So after that there's time code. I don't use time code, so but it's there if you need it. These are the different options. If it's for you, you can choose that. And then we get to playback FR. What should be is that when it's on default, it should play the frames per second that that's on your timeline. So if I choose 25 frames per second and with a 100 frames variable frame rate, it should just play normal. But I don't know, they're still working on it at Tcam, but it keeps playing slow motion in some settings. And if you choose for the variable frame rate, it already plays slow motion. So if you want to watch something back in slow motion, you can choose that option. And with the default option, it should play back normal speed, but it doesn't work quite well. But well, the meta setup I don't use. You can give your camera ID, name, etc. But it's there if it's for you. The pre-roll, what that does, look, when I put it on, when you want to record something, it gives like a red round, and the minute you press record, it records, it automatically records 5 seconds before you press record. So if you got everything set and the actor or someone that's in front of your camera does something unexpected, but you're like, oh, you had to get that, but you press record too late, it already recorded 5 seconds. So maybe you're lucky and it's already there. So once you press record, it already recorded 5 seconds before you press record. So that's the pre-roll option. So we go to the raw over HDMI. I don't use that, so I got it off. Playback speed, yeah, you can choose different options, but I don't use it, I just put it on one time and it just plays back good. Okay, so that's for the record option in the menu. As we go into the video mode, you can see the first option is your encoder, and this is where the tricky part starts, because if you don't know the settings, you can search for hours, but as you can see, the other options of encoders are not lit, so you can't choose them, only H.265. So what you need to do is you go back into record, turn off the variable frame rates like this, off, then go back to video. Voila, now you can choose H.264, or you can choose ProRes proxy, ProRes 422 LT, ProRes 422, ProRes 422 HQ, and Z RAW. So those are the options you can choose. So that's why I say take some getting used to, because if you don't know that you should turn off the variable frame rates before you can choose that option, and that you need to put this on MOV instead of MP4, otherwise you can't get those other options. Take some getting used to, because also if you choose the ProRes settings, that will give you other variable frame rates than other options. So that's why I need to do a separate video on the slow motion, because for now I just want to show you the options that's in the menu, but to really work with the options, that's a different thing. That's something different. So here you can choose your encoder, your bitrate, always high. Love my bitrate high. Oh, that's also, see, if you go to different options, different things are off. See, now I can choose the bitrate, high, medium, low. Can turn on the proxy track, so it makes proxies next to the original files, and it's easier to work with, especially H.265 in Premiere. Sometimes it's hard to edit and you have to make proxies, and then you can edit it more easy. So it's easier to shoot ProRes. That's much easier for your computer, but you can just turn on the proxies, yes or no. Takes up some space, but if you got space on your SSD or your CFast card, that's okay. Rotation, you can rotate the screen up and down if you like. Keep that off. The wide dynamic range, WDR, that's a different story. You can put it on, put it off. For now I'll leave it off. And yeah, it also blocks some options for slow motion, but when I do the slow motion video, I'll take you through that. And but you can turn it off and on, and what the wide dynamic range does, it gives you extra 2 stops on the ISO, so you can go from ISO 500 to ISO 250, and yeah, it should give some more dynamic range, and maybe it does, but I don't like the option, but I'll get back to that. The time-lapse, I haven't tested it yet, but should be cool. Do some time-lapse on it, it's possible. The VFR course, you can set it to coarse or fine. Got it to coarse. The low jello, so when you move your camera real quick left to right, it should take some rolling shutter away, but as I read is that if you activate that, it gives like a green tint on the screen. So I haven't tested it yet, but I just leave it to off, because yeah, I don't intend to move my camera real fast yet, so, but I'll test it out. Then the photo quality, it is possible to make a picture with this JPEG, RAW, or HEIF, I don't know what that is. but that's comes in handy when you're on set and you want to have exactly the same starting positions, or you want to remember what they were, or what were the props, or etc. You can take a picture, store it on the card, and then look it back later. So that's for the video menu. We got the audio menu. That's yeah, the input. You got a microphone input right here. Got an XLR right here in the back. Mic left and XLR right. Mic right and XLR left. Yes, so that's the options for the input. Input level, well, got the mic level and you got the line level. Then the noise reduction, you can turn it off or you can turn it on. Input gain. I haven't really tested the audio options really. I'm just shooting some footage, and audio comes next. So AAC is the most common way to go. Leave it on that. Output gain, and again some options are muted because I haven't got an XLR mic on. Got phantom power. And last but not least, audio level display, disable or enable. That's a display on your screen if you like it. So that's the audio section. Now for the exposure, I'm in Europe, so you got the flicker reduction. I'm in Europe, so I'm at 50 Hertz, and other countries are at 60 Hertz, so I just leave it on that. The exposure value right now is disabled, and it has to do with the fact that the ISO is not on auto, but I'll get back to that in a minute. The shutter angle, I got it 180. I'd rather use shutter angle than shutter speed, because once it's at a shutter angle and you change your variable frame rates or you record on a higher frame rate, it automatically adjusts the shutter speed to the right angle or to the right speed. So with 180, it's always double the frame rate that you're shooting in. So that's handy. Your aperture, well, that's nice. You can set it here, but it's also possible to do it with these buttons. But I'll get back to that in another video. It's a lot of videos to do. Yeah, ISO, yes, as you can see, the base ISO is 500, and with the wide dynamic range you can get 2 extra stops, push it up to 250. When it's really bright outside, it's hard to shoot sometimes, so that's why I bought an ND filter, because sometimes 250 is not enough to get a nice clean picture when it's sunny outside. So you can put it on auto, and look what happens when I put it on auto. That's when the exposure value lights up, and you can set your exposure value. And I always do manual, everything manual, so I leave the ISO at manual. It's the best way to go, because sometimes auto can mess up your shot, because the camera can't think like you think, and he just thinks from a technical perspective, so can't blame him. END, that's the END filter that goes here. I don't have that, so that's all good. I got the slot though, but I heard the filters are really hard to get, so I'm not gonna get into it. I got an ND filter already, so that's no problem. END module also goes for the END filter. And then the minimal ISO and the max ISO, there's also, you can set that manual if you like. For now it's not lit, so look, that's why you have to put it on auto. Go back, and that's where you can set the minimal ISO and the max ISO. You see, so you just have to need to get to know the menu and see where the options are, and when you enable something, something else disables, and vice versa. So see, when I put the ISO on manual, it disappears, but when you change the minimal and maximum ISO, it stays that way. So when you put it on manual again, That's the minimal and max it goes, so that is nice. Max shutter angle, don't use that. Metering mode, center, shutter operation, you can use this of course, average or spot. Your shutter operation speed or angle, where you can choose for you to put it on speed like 1/50, or just the angle. It's like 24 frames or 25 frames, and as soon as you record, it keeps 25 frames or 100 frames, and then it doubles it to 100. So yeah, the shutter operation, ISO control, fine or native ISO. If you want to get into that, just Google it and you can look it up. Extended manual ISO, you can put it off or on. I don't use that, so I haven't got time to test that yet. The autofocus speed, that's limited. The auto exposure speed, sorry, that's enabled right now, probably because the ISO is on manual. And last but not least, lock in record. Normally I put that on, so when you as soon as you press record, the exposure stays the way that you set it. So on to the next, the white balance. As you can see, you got different modes: shade, manual, cloudy, daylight. Of course, my last shoot was on daylight, so leave it on daylight. Or you can auto white balance. Don't recommend it, but hey, sometimes it's nice to do some auto white balance. And or you can set it manual. Let's see, I'll put it on manual like this, and then you can set it by yourself, the Kelvin tint. Yes, also lock in record. So that's for the white balance. On to the focus, and right now it's shooting in a manual focus, and as you can see, some options are disabled, and as soon as I turn on the autofocus, these options appear. Focus area, human track. I haven't tested it yet, but I heard that if you track someone and who's walking or someone, it recognizes the movement, and then it tracks the person automatically. And I got it that flexible zone, also good. Focus area small, because the autofocus is not that good and not that fast, so that's why I got it that small. I found out that at small it works best. You should point it at the thing you need to focus on, and then there's the option to go with the OK button and then focus it real quick, and that's when it's fast. But when you focus on something and you let the lens focus itself, then the autofocus is not that quick, but it's usable. It's accurate though, it's accurate, but it's not that quick. So change focus area. Yeah, you can change it in this screen right here, but on my big screen it's not showing up, so it's kind of hard to yeah, you can move it around, but you know, it's not that great. Moving on to the continuous autofocus, you can turn it off or you can turn it on. As I mentioned earlier, the autofocus is not that great and not that fast, but as a cinematographer, you don't really need autofocus. You do everything by manual, as I assume, as it's supposed to be. So autofocus is only a plus, and yeah, I used to use autofocus on gimbals a lot. So, but I have it switched on because it got the option to, when you press OK, it quickly autofocus on your subject or your object, and that's a nice feature. It's also possible to do the live continuous autofocus, and I don't use that because when I turn that on, it keeps searching for things to focus on, so I don't like that option. I only got the continuous autofocus on, so I can use the OK button to set the autofocus. And with the live continuous autofocus on, the OK button is it's not possible to use. The continuous autofocus sensitivity, you can change that to from high, middle to low. And last but not least, the manual focus assist. So that's all for the focus menu. And over to the image. The image option is where you can select your image profile. Got a Rec 709, really nice Rec 709 look straight out the camera. Or of course the Z-Log 2. That's the for your color graders out there. Z-Log 2 is a nice option. You can expose it the right way, expose it to the right. And there's also a LUT you can use, especially for the Zcam. That's overexposure LUT by 2, and then you can see how your footage is, if your footage is nicely exposed. So also got flat. That's somewhere between the Rec 709 and the Z-Log. Got some other options. I haven't tested it yet, but most of the time I use the Rec 709 at evening shoots or in studio shoots, and the Z-Log when you need that extra dynamic range when it's outside or it's different scenes during the day. Then the Z-Log is really nice. You can grade it really good. Got a lot of details, so it's a good option to shoot in Z-Log, but just not at night. The sharpness and noise reduction, brightness, contrast, saturation, and the luminance level, you can choose by different options. It disables and enables the options again. See, you can set your sharpness to medium. It's already on medium when you select Rec 709, but you can choose put it on another setting. Your noise reduction, you can put it on medium, weak, or just off. Brightness, you can adjust that. Saturation, contrast, luminance level. So you can all change that, but I just leave it at the basics, and then do everything in post. So, but with the Rec 709 image profile, you already get a nice look straight out the camera, and in edit you just minor tweak it and make it the way you like it, and that's and then you're good to go. Okay, that's for the image profiles. Go to connect. Got your Wi-Fi network. You can place an antenna here. I haven't placed it. I haven't tested it yet because I didn't use the Wi-Fi. I've got my external monitor, so I don't need my phone yet to use as monitor. It's easy on set. You can use it as a second monitor and also use your external monitor to see on the scene. You can put the Wi-Fi on or off. Look, and as soon as you turn it on, you get an IP address and a Wi-Fi name, so you can put the settings online, and that's a Wi-Fi name to connect to. So I just turn that off, the Wi-Fi. Okay, Ethernet mode, direct, static, or router, whichever one fits you. I didn't use that yet. I'm still waiting for the option to stream directly to Facebook or YouTube without a PC coming between. So that's the thing for Ethernet. USB, I don't use that. HDMI, if you want the display options in your screen when you're using an external monitor, put this to on, and then you'll see exactly what you're doing, and you can turn it off if you want your screen clean, and the options in this screen right here. Let's see, OSD layout, I use that type 1 to format. Yes, leave it on auto. You can also change that. I don't use edits also. The multi-camera, I don't use that. I don't use this. The grip, I think that's for like when you put a grip on the side, you can put different things, options to the buttons to press, or side wheel. It's a really nice option, but I don't use a grip, but that's so good. So that's for the connect option. And last but not least, the system. That's the system of the camera. And when everything goes downhill and you don't know what to do anymore, and you think I'll throw this camera in the garbage can, just try the clear settings, and it puts it right back into factory mode, and just the way you bought it. That's how it resets. And yeah, once you do that, there's no way back. All your options are gone, but you have a new camera again, the way it came straight out the box. So format card, we all know what that does. It formats the card. You can use a CFast card or your SSD card. You can select it and format. Assist tools, yeah, you can put some things in your screen, like the scope, the peak, the exposure, frame lines, center mark, the grid line, we all know, rule of thirds of course, safe area, and that's for the assist tools. I don't really use that because my external monitor got all those options and I use them over there, so I don't have to go into this menu and search or put it on and off. So you can load LUTs, got some built-in LUTs. I don't use that. D-squeeze display has to do with if you use anamorphic lenses, you can use this option. And I don't use anamorphic lenses yet, so I have to do a quick workshop on what is anamorphic lenses, but I'll get to that. And your user profile, this is a nice option. You can save your profile, and then it saves the options that you set for maybe you have like a setting that you need to go back to every time, or you have one slow motion, one normal, one half slow motion, I don't know, 50 frames or 100 frames. And then you can save your profile, and yeah, then it's into, you can save it on card or you can save it on the camera itself. Take in mind that if you save it on the camera and you clear settings or whatever, it all goes away. So here you can load your profile and you can save it to card, load from card. And the thing is, I couldn't find the delete button. So I was like, how can I delete this? And I started looking online, couldn't find anything, and then accidentally I pressed the function button and voila, this happened. You can export it to card, you can delete it, and you can delete all settings. So it's strange why they didn't put like a delete option in the main menu. That's strange, but that's room for improvement, so it's okay. Yeah, so here you can save your profiles, load profiles, and I heard that if you save it to card, you can also give it a name. And with the normal ones, it just goes from 0 to 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, etc. The user buttons, you can assign every button with different options. I got mine on, so as you can see, the function button, that's this one, that's on ISO. It came out of the factory like that. I left it like that. Then you got the side buttons, the F1, F2, F3, F4, and I got the F1 on record, 2 on load profile, 3 for the magnifier, 4 for the peaking, and the power button is to play back, to see your videos, play back your videos. And the OK button, that's for the autofocus. So when you're in autofocus mode and you didn't turn on the continuous autofocus, then yeah, you can press this one and then it autofocuses for you. Okay, so what's more to come? The up button, that's this one. It's also the shutter, and the down button is my aperture, and then we're back to 0. Okay, so next option is the record indicator. That's the light on this side and on that side. You can turn it off and you can turn it on. I have it on. Looks interesting, looks professional. Yes. Okay. And of course you have the restore lens. I don't use that. LCD brightness, got it on 10 right now, else it was too bright for the camera, but it works like this, so I keep it at 10 for now, but normally it's at 50. And the power, you can select that, auto power, auto standby, low alarm. When your battery is almost gone, you can choose on which level it's going to give you an alarm that the battery is almost gone. Power output off on. And the language, let's keep it at English, else I can't find the settings anymore. Date and time, you can set that. Time zone, I'm in London, no, I'm in Rotterdam, but it takes the London time zone. The camera status shows you what how much storage you got left, and yeah, the version of the camera, etc. Got all sorts of information about the camera. And last but not least, the version. Always check to see if you get the latest updates, and if you haven't got the latest updates, you can go to the Zcam website and download the latest updates. It's always good to update so you can have the latest functions and the latest options to set your camera to the right settings. And as you can see, it's an easy menu to work with. You got everything you need to get some nice settings for your video, and it's easy to scroll through, and no matter what you're looking for, it takes some time to know where the buttons are and what the options are, especially for the slow motion part. You need to know how this works and what option limits other options, so when you're on set, you know exactly what you're doing, and you're not keep searching for the right option to set your mode while everybody's waiting. So if you have any questions, just leave them down in the comments, and I haven't tested everything yet, so hope we can help each other, and maybe you got some tips and tricks for me, and let's work this out together. I'm loving this menu. It's got a lot of it's easy, but it's got a lot of options. So that's it for the Zcam E2-M4 menu. If you got any questions, comments, tips or tricks, whatever, put them down below in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe, put on the notification bell so you stay up to date with my latest videos, and I see you next time.